Chris Sewall here, baseball card collector, investor, dealer, in that order. Welcome everyone. Adventures in card dealing story time today, and this is the story of a purchase I made a little over a year ago, and it came with sort of a silly negotiating situation. And this is actually my wife's favorite story that I tell. I've told it a couple times to a group of people, and she always finds it really funny. So I thought I'd share it here in a video today. And like I said, it happened a little over a year ago, so I don't remember the exact specifics, but I remember for the most part. But any like numbers and cards involved, is sort of my best memory. But if it's off, it's not off by much. So I get a call from somebody local, and it's a word of mouth situation. Like I had done a deal with somebody they knew, and that person referred them to me. So I drove out to their house, and it was a very large house in the suburbs. Certainly a multi-million-dollar house. This is not a picture of the house, but something like this. The seller lets me in, and he's maybe in his mid-60s, something like that, and he's extremely friendly. Over the top, nice, very hospitable. He makes me a cup of tea and offers me like water and snacks and says he'll buy me lunch at some point. And we get along great. He's sort of a very funny and just pleasant guy to be around. One thing I noticed that he does early on, which is completely fine, he starts sort of planting the seeds for the negotiation when we ultimately get there. And he's saying things like, "Oh, you're the first person I've called, but I have a couple other people I can call as well if I feel like your offer's too low." And he says, another thing he says is like, "I'm retired now, I have a lot more time, so if I don't feel like your offer isn't high enough, then one thing I can do is I can sell the cards myself." And, these are perfectly reasonable things for him to say. They may or may not be true, but in the moment I sort of read it as he was just sort of planting the seeds for the negotiation, after I've looked at the cards. He takes me down to the basement, which is like a massive hangout room, pool table, full bar, big TV, the works, and the cards are down there, and it's a bulky collection, maybe 50,000 cards. And he tells me he collected them when he was younger, back in the maybe 70s and 80s, and he hadn't, they've been in storage ever since, and he hasn't touched cards or been interested in sports cards in 40 years. So I tell him it's going to take probably a couple hours for me to go through the collection and price it out. And he says, that's fine. And I say I can do one of two things. And I usually offer this when I'm looking at a large collection. I say I can just give you one number at the end for everything, or I can sort of break it up into categories and then tell you what I can pay for each category. And that can give you a better sense for how I got to the final number. And he says, yeah, let's do the second one. And yeah, it's a slightly more work for me, but I don't really mind. So yeah, we agree that I'm going to break it up into categories and price it out. He leaves me alone in the room. He actually puts on a movie for me. I think it was a Mission Impossible movie. But yeah, there was a Mission Impossible movie playing in the background as I priced out this collection. So I start going through the collection, and it's heavy 1970s. Ranges from maybe like the late 60s through the mid 80s or so. But again, really heavy late 1970s. Mostly baseball, a little bit of football, and I think there was a little bit of hockey mixed in there as well. The condition overall wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either. Maybe VG to EX across the board, and it was sorted pretty well, so I could actually get through the collection fairly quickly. And this all lined up with what he had said, that he hadn't collected or even really looked at the cards in 40 years or so. Nothing was graded. These would have all been before the times of grading. So yeah, that all made sense. So after going through the collection, I had split it into 8 categories and made 8 stacks of cards. And I don't remember the exact categories or my exact offers, but it was roughly this, what you see on screen. And you can see category 8 was called the money box top cards. That's more than half of the value, or more than half of what I was offering was for that category alone. And what that was anytime I was going through the cards and I found a card that was worth maybe $10 or more, I just pulled it out and put it into this one box and called it the money box. And think of cards like Eddie Murray rookie, 1978 tops, a lot of Nolan Ryans, and there was a Terry Bradshaw rookie, I remember. But yeah, any cards like this I put in the box, and I don't remember exactly, but there ended up being a few hundred cards in there. So I call him in and I say, hey, I'm done. And I explain I've made 8 categories like we discussed. And the 8th category is all the best cards that I pulled out as I went. He had agreed to this ahead of time. So I said, let's go through each category one by one. And then I'll tell you the total at the end. And he said, sounds great. So I said, okay, category 1 are the late 70s commons. For this category, I can pay $200. And his reaction is, $200? That's so low. It's a lot of cards. It's so low. I said, well, no, it's actually, a very fair offer. Late 70s commons are only worth a few cents a piece. You're gonna have to sell them in bulk, 'cause not easy to move. But yeah, I can offer $200 for that category. $200, that's so low. And I said, okay, I understand you may feel that's low. Why don't we go through each category and then we'll discuss the totals at the end. And he says, okay. So I said, for category 2, these are early 70s commons. They're a little bit better than the late 70s. They sell for more per card. So for category 2, I can pay $600. And his response is, $600? You said the early 70s? That's so low. That's so low. And he said, no, it's actually a very fair offer. But like I said, well, let's go through all the categories and then we can discuss. And so for category 3, I've separated out the stars from the 70s, but not the key cards, just like, better players, better than commons, and put them in this category. So for category 3, I can pay $900. And he goes, $900 for all the stars, you said? That's so low. That's just so low. And he literally just had the exact same reaction to every category that we went through, all the way up to the end. And then finally we got to the 8th category, and I reiterated, these are all the best cards. These are the most valuable stuff I've pulled out as I went along, put it all in one box. And we're calling it the money box. And for this box, I can pay $5,000. And yeah, he had the exact same reaction. $5,000 for all the best cards? That's just so low. That's just so low. And perhaps you're having the same thought that I had, which was, I'm the one who had gone through the collection and pulled these cards and put them in the box. He literally didn't know what was in the box. It's not like he came and looked at the box, after I had done it. He literally didn't know the cards that were in the box. So now I'm trying to sort of figure out how to, manage this negotiation. So a quick side note, when I'm making an offer on a collection, I usually just offer basically pretty close to the max I'm willing to pay. There might be exceptions. Like if I know the person already, I might just offer the max right off the bat, or if I sense that they're going to want to negotiate a lot, or they have unreasonable expectations, I may actually come in a little lower just to leave more room for negotiation. But usually I just offer pretty close to the max, maybe leaving like 10% or so in case they want to negotiate. And that was the case here. So I tell them, well, I can hear that you're not happy with some of these totals, but let me just tell you, if we add everything up, the total that I would offer for everything is $8,000. And he, of course, has the reaction, $8,000 for the whole thing? That's just too low. Way too low. I mean, that's barely even a mortgage payment for me. So I say, okay, well, if 8,000 is too low, what's the number you're looking to get for the collection? And he says, 8,000 is just way too low, man. You're going to have to come up. What can you come up to? And I say, well, I've already made an offer of 8,000. I'm not going to negotiate against myself and make a higher offer. But I'm happy to hear your counter offer, and maybe I'll accept it, or maybe we can meet in the middle. But you're going to have to give me a counter offer. What's the number you're looking to get? And just to be clear, at this point, I was very, very sure that he had absolutely no idea what the collection was worth. He didn't know if it was $1,000 or $10,000 or $100. I mean, he really had no idea whatsoever. He was just trying to get me to increase my offer. So he sort of abandons that, and then he goes into the individual categories, and he says, okay, well, let's go through each category. And what was category 1 again? I said category 1 was the late 70s commons, and on that I can offer $200. He says, $200 is so low. You got to come up. What can you come up to on that? And I say, again, I'm not going to negotiate against myself. I've already offered, $200 for that category, but to be honest, I don't really want to come up on that category. There's no valuable cards in there. It's very bulky stuff. It's hard to sell. It's slow moving stuff. $200 is a very, very fair offer. I'd like to buy it for $200, but I'm not going to overpay for it. So I probably wouldn't come up on that one. So he's like, okay, well, what was category 2 again? And I say, well, category 2 was the early 70s commons, and on that I offered $600, and he of course goes, $600, early 70s. All those early 70s cards, only $600. It's so low. It's just too low. What can you come up to on this category? I know you can come up a little bit on this category. What can you come up to on this category? And I said, same situation as the last category. I've already made my offer, so I'm not going to negotiate against myself. If you want to make a counter offer on this category, I'll entertain it. But again, to be honest, this is not a category I really have any room on. It's very, very bulky stuff, not stuff I'd like to buy it for $600, but again, not stuff I'm willing to overpay for because it's hard to move slow-moving stuff. So then he, of course, asks, well, what was category 3 again? And, at this point, I sort of stop him and I just say, hey, look, I understand you're doing a little song and dance negotiation around each of the categories, but here's the thing. Like the first 7 categories, they're bulky stuff. I'm not really interested in upping my offer. You're not going to have any luck if you try this negotiation tactic with me, getting me to up my offer on any of the first 7 categories. If you want to try the, it's way too low strategy, the only thing you might work on is the 8th category. So why don't we just skip the first 7 categories, and you can try your little song and dance on the 8th category, and maybe you can get me to come up on that. And when I said that, I was thinking in my head, like, this is kind of rude. very direct, and I didn't know how he was going to respond. And I don't want to, remind everyone that he was extremely friendly. Like, we had gotten along fantastically, and there was no like aggression in any of this. But it had gotten frustrating for me. So I just said this very directly, and he sort of paused for a little bit, and he goes, "Well, category 8, what was that one again?" And I said, "That was the box of all the best stuff that I can offer 5,000 on." And he goes, "Oh, 5,000 for all the best stuff? That's way too low. Way too low. Come on, man, you got to come up. What can you come up to on that? What can you come up to?" And I sort of laughed internally, and I went, "Okay, look, I don't usually do this, but this is the one category I have some room on because it's the nicest stuff, and there's potentially some, maybe some grading upside. It's the easiest to sell stuff. So on this category, I'll up my offer from 5,000 to 6,000, which would bring the total for the entire deal to 9,000. But that's really probably as high as you're gonna get me to go." And he goes, "Ah, great!" Instantly was like, "Ah, that sounds great." And we shook hands, and like that whole stuff just disappeared immediately. He was very, very happy. He just wanted me to increase my offer so that he could feel like he had gotten a win there. But everything was super smooth after that. I paid him via PayPal, friends and family, and then he helped me load the car. And it was everything went smooth beyond that. But the reason my wife really likes that story and finds it funny is because literally in the middle of a negotiation, I told somebody, "Hey, the way you're negotiating is not working on me. You should try this instead. This would work on me." And then he did that, and then it worked. I ended up upping my offer based on that. So I was literally guiding somebody through how to negotiate with me in the moment, which is sort of a funny situation. But yeah, like I said, everything was extremely pleasant the whole time. I actually told him I might make a video on this one day, and he said, "Oh, I didn't even know you had a YouTube channel, but that would be perfectly fine." And it was other than me getting slightly annoyed at one point, it was overall a very pleasant experience. But hope everybody enjoyed the story. Let me know what you all thought. If any questions or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments. And we'll see you all again next time. Thanks, everyone.